ahead and share my screen and we'll just get into it today. I know this is one that, I've had a few people. We do this every year, and it's funny because when we started suggesting that people do video in the aviation industry, or especially aviation thought leaders in this space start to do video, everybody looked at us like we had three heads. They thought this was the most crazy thing ever. I'm never going to do video. That's nuts. That's, outside of my comfort zone. That isn't done in our industry. It's just not, what is the word? Professional to be doing, especially short promo videos that are less than studio perfect and all of those things. But you have to understand that John and I come from the days of the dinosaurs when aviation was so polished and so perfect. And, the shows and the magazines and everything else were just absolutely spectacular. But it was also spectacularly expensive to do marketing in aviation. And it was very, very difficult for small businesses, family businesses, new entries and other things to get a foothold. I think video has really democratized all of that a lot in the last few years. So since this is a really small group today, let's just kind of go around the room and tell me what you have done so far with video and what you would like to do so far with video. We'll start with you, John, who I know you're such a huge fan of being on video, but I drag you here every week.
Well, firstly, it's her company. I work for her.
You do what you're told.
I do a lot. And we take care of financing and cybersecurity. I've got a background that's heavy into that. And I'm able to do some coding in some different sorts of languages to help with analyzing data sometimes. But with respect to video, actually, when I go looking on the web for something, it's taken a long time for me to realize that video is sometimes better.
Mm.
And the thing that actually made it for me was the fact that I had a problem with my Merc. I had a 2004 Mercury Marquis, and I had to replace a computer. It has several. And it was an overhead computer, and I mean, there was no way you could see to take it apart. And everybody tell me, and so I found a YouTube video, and it said what to do, and it said just keep doing this until it pops. I said, really? I said, well, whatever, it's not working now. And it did. It worked. Somebody figured it out. So that made that and a couple other things I've done made me a believer in video.
So now it's kind of habitual for you as a customer to use video, right?
Oh, yeah.
Right. I think that is, one of the pretty key things that that we've seen is that our behavior as customers kind of informs our behavior as marketers. So what we do, we know it works because we use it ourselves. Um, right. So, and I know, John, you're such a fan of being on screen and having your face on screen and having your voice on screen and everything else. I think it was Adam Driver, the actor, who was Kylo Ren in Star Wars, that just cannot stand to see his own video. He literally will not watch his own video. And I don't know how he manages to make a living as an actor, but, I think it's a fairly human thing that we are very, very critical of ourselves when we see ourselves on video, our face, our voice, etc. But when you look at the numbers, it becomes pretty easy to get over that, right? When you look at how effective it is and how much it helps marketing for such a big impact for such a small cost, right?
I don't know if it helps to get over it, but logically you get over it. I did.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So we'll talk about, also the, I guess, camera shyness today also, which is a problem for a lot of folks that we work with. I think probably every single person that we've had in our studio, we've had to do some warm-ups, throw away the first take, do a lot of things like that to get through that, but, cool. Thank you, John. Miguel, you were next online. You wanna jump in and share what's up with you and how you want to use video? And
Right, so I haven't done any video at all, and I know I keep saying that I need to, I just haven't gotten around to it.
uh-huh,
In my mind, it just gets pushed off to the back burner, and I feel kinda like, "Oh, I did a LinkedIn post, I did a company post, we put something on Instagram," but I personally haven't been on any video, and I'm
mhm,
actually supposed to be doing a 20, 30-minute conversation today, with a car dealership owner, on video, so that'll be my first time. It's supposed to be scheduled for today, we just did the photo shoot yesterday, so we're doing our interview today, explaining what we're doing. Um, but, yeah, I'd love to start doing more short stuff. Steve Rossano's doing a great job of that. I'd love to emulate a lot of what he's doing.
mhm.
Uh, and yeah, I know I need to do it, I just haven't gotten around to it.
Right. No, that's great. There are a few pioneers in our industry. Steve Ursano is one, Tim Bonnell's another, that do video all the time, and, it makes such a huge impact to their audience and their business and, being available worldwide to clients and, something that can't be copied, at least not easily and not well, even with AI being what it is. But, yes, I think there's a lot of really good reasons to do it. Um, for your video today, are there any specific questions that you have or anything that we can help you with just so we've got a small group today, so I'm sure that's on your mind for sure.
I just I guess kind of a direction to go.
Mm,
From what I understand, the conversation is gonna be spanning a couple of different ways that we can integrate a lot of their assets. I think he owns, um, 8 or 9 vacation homes across the world. They own a vineyard. He has he makes wine. He had that in the photo shoot yesterday. They own a yacht in the Bahamas, so just kinda explaining how they can use our planes to get their clientele or shared clientele to those destinations and all that kinda stuff. So we don't really have an outline for the conversation yet. We haven't talked about it much, everything was more focused on the photo shoot, and I
yeah,
don't wanna go in there and just wing it and talk about nothing, so maybe just a structure for the conversation and the right questions to ask and the right topics to talk about.
cool. Yeah, that always helps me, to have an outline or something. We may not use it. In fact, John and I tend to throw those away. We write them and then we throw them away. But the fact that we had an outline is kinda helpful, and then we kinda depart from that and do something else. But okay, yeah, let's do that, and we'll figure out a way to do that toward the end of the call today. Angel, you're getting into video, and I know you're producing a lot of video for us as well, which is amazing. That's really helpful.
Yeah, for me, I'll be honest, I'm not super into taking videos of myself because I'm kind of shy in front of camera, but I do want to get more comfortable with it because it becomes part of your brand. People start recognizing it, and that makes me your content feel more personal and trustworthy. So for me, learning how to structure videos and also just how you prepare your storyline or storyboard.
Yeah, okay. Excellent. Yeah, we'll be talking about structure and storytelling and all of that today as well because
As a
that
matter of fact, it occurred to me before we bought our first airplane, we had we got 3 postcards. I mean, I'd, talked to the guy once, and it took 3 postcards over several months. But it occurred to me that if I'd had videos to look at the aircraft, we might have gone for a 182 instead of a 172.
Mhm,
Because you can compare the stuff,
mhm.
you know,
Yeah.
and see the differences in the way it flies, the way it handles, and, ease to get in and out and load, all that stuff that is you see on paper
Mhm.
doesn't make a compelling reason like a video does.
Like a
At
video
least
to
at least the way I have come to see things.
right. And, I think our market for videos is people like John, people who are pilots, they, process information visually. So I think that probably would have helped, and we would have spent a whole lot more money on that first airplane.
Very likely.
Maybe it's a good thing we didn't. But, true. Anna Marie, are you available? Did you wanna jump in on that? And tell us what your experience is and other things. I know you run a magazine, so it's not a video source, but you also do online advertising as well, and you're a broker. So there's a lot of things that you could do with this as well.
Yes, video, I think it's gonna be very important in terms of driving web traffic to our website and to our publication, and web traffic is the name of the game. It's very important. So I want to learn to use video to drive that web traffic to enhance our sales process in terms of selling advertising and marketing on our website, and to better market our publication and show people what it's all about. And as you said, the pilot community is very visual, and showing our magazine visually and what it has to offer in terms of advertorial and editorial and advertising. I think video is a great way to do it. And I think one thing that's holding me back is, I don't want to see myself on there. I'm fine with doing it as long as I don't have to appear in them. Um, so I want to learn more tools about appearing in them and not being critical on yourself, as you've mentioned, and also getting other people to share their experience with our publication and getting them to use video as a tool and to appear in our videos. So, yeah, I've done a little bit of it, but I haven't been consistent with it by any means. And I think that consistency is going to be key. So I'm here to learn how we can improve that consistency and encourage people to give their testimonials about a 40-year-old product on video.
Yeah. Okay. That sounds amazing. And I think, that makes a lot of sense. There are ways to do video without showing as much of your face. And, I'm really happy that we found a process that allows us to use a lot of B-roll and a lot less of my face. So, that makes it seem better. Of course, voice is kind of a very powerful thing as well. So, if you can do voiceovers with other types of video, B-roll or animations or diagrams or whatever you want, that can also be very compelling. But yeah, so we'll talk about all of that. Um, Outcomes of this workshop, hopefully we will have a sustainable video strategy for your budget and resources, find a concept that will be effective with your prospects, create an effective storyboard and shot list. And this might be helpful to you, Miguel, as you're walking into this afternoon. If you have a little bit better storyboard and shot list coming into this, how to shoot or create high quality clips and stills. We're not going to talk a lot about the how to's today because we've only got an hour and most of our equipment is different from one another's. So, we're not going to get into the what buttons to push or anything like that. But there's a lot of material about that out on the web. Um, and then we'll also talk about opportunities to collaborate with us and have Angel produce your videos the way she does for me. So that's really nice to have that option. So I guess if you leave with one thing today, if you remember one thing and forget everything else, or if your internet goes out and want to make it worth your time for attending today, the one thing is show rather than tell. And that includes even if you are doing your face on the screen, a talking head video, you want to show rather than tell, meaning project your energy, project your belief in your company, project your, think about what you're talking about, not about the fact that you're being videoed. And that's easy to remember once you get into it. And almost all of our clients are super passionate about what they do. And once they get past that first couple of seconds, that's, kind of like how we throw away the first draft or throw away the first pancake, because the first draft, they're thinking about the mechanics and they're thinking about, oh, there's a camera in my face and there's lighting from here and I'm looking weird and I'm worried about my voice. But you forget about all of that once you get into your topic and, show your passion or your enthusiasm for what you do. And the worst videos I've ever seen are where people are worried, and they're worried about the mechanics and they're worried about this and they're worried about that and they're going off to adjust things and things like that. There is nothing worse. people will forgive a terrible video as long as you're passionate about your topic. Um, so, the most important thing to remember as you come out of this is just show rather than tell. And that's what's really gets me through all of this every single day is just I really enjoy watching people's lights come on. I really enjoy watching their numbers go up. I like getting the emails about I just made a sale because of X, Y, or Z, and so that's what turns me on. And I hope that comes across in the videos because that's what a lot of people tell us when they contact us is I can see you know what you're talking about, and I can see that you're really, passionate about email or, about whatever tool it is that I was talking about in the video and, how much good it does for people. Okay. So, there are a couple of things that you can do with video, where you wanna use video in your sales process. And you've all seen our wheel. We've got our, prospecting, approaching, holding pattern, um, sales, referrals, and testimonials, and things like that. So for prospecting, a cold intro, you can send an intro video on LinkedIn or YouTube. Often people will schedule a consultation with me to begin with, a sales consultation, and then not show up for whatever reason. Either they did it on a whim or they had something come up or whatever. And I will do a 5-minute video saying, "Hey, it's nice to meet you. I was looking forward to talking with you about these 3 things." And then I send them the video via LinkedIn or via an email and or send them a link to a video by one of those 2 things. And it's personalized and it almost always works and it um, gets that cold intro warmed up again. In the holding pattern, you can use this as a friendly reconnection in a long sales cycle. So you can use a generic video. We do videos every single week, and we send them to everybody on our list about one thing or another. Whether it's a replay of this workshop, as an example, or whether it is a 5-minute video or a 2-minute video about a particular topic. So people are hearing from us once a week, and if it takes us 8 months to execute a deal or whatever, that relationship hasn't gone cold in that amount of time. They may not watch every one of our videos. They may not open every one of our emails, but we actually have about a 40%, 35 to 40% open rate on our emails, and I really credit that to when we started including an email with those thumbnails. When we send an email with a link to YouTube, and then we also use the thumbnails from YouTube so they can skip to a specific part of a video, that really skyrocketed our email open rates and also a lot of our YouTube watch time and other things like that. Another thing that video does for you is builds your authority, credibility, and expertise. Miguel, you mentioned Steve Versano. Everybody knows Steve Versano, even if they've never met him because hear him and they see him on the screen all the time. And, so he almost seems like a relative. When you meet him in person, he's really a friendly guy, but he's also very comfortable, to shake his hand and hang out with him. He may not know me, but I feel like I know him. Um, and, that really kind of builds that aura or that relationship, even if it is one-sided. And then we've had people come up to us that I have never seen before, actually come up and shake my hand or hug me at an event or something like that and say, "Hey, you helped me with this." And I've never seen this person before in my entire life. So it's a really good position to be in, especially in a niche like ours. Managing objections, as John mentioned, the difference between a 172 and a 182. If it's a salesperson talking to you, of course you're gonna be resistant, but if it's a video that you sought out and are looking at, what is the difference between a 172 and a 182, that's a whole lot more credible than somebody trying to upsell you. So I think that's a really good way to do that. Welcoming new customers, um, sending them a specific we like to do that in person, on Zoom, but if they're overseas and we have absolutely no, overlap with their structure, we'll send them an email or, an email with a video in it, and then also encourage sales recaptures and referrals. So this is all the way around our cycle, we use video. Um, my suggestion is to start with your biggest sales problem. So if it's prospecting, start with prospecting. How can you do the best cold intro or the best, um, building of authority, credibility, and expertise, the best way of introducing your product or service to somebody that's never heard of you before. So solve your biggest problem first. These are some, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about this, just because of time today, but you've got this in your, does everybody have the printed workbook? Go like this. Raise your hand, do something. Okay. Yes. Okay, good. Thank you. All right, so you've got this, and you can figure out, for you the aspects of your business, and a lot of people are more than one thing. Anna Marie, you probably cover a bunch of these, and Miguel as well. And so, if you're a broker, these are things that are really, really good videos to shoot, and they don't have to be long. They could each be 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever the situation is. And I would start at the top of the list and work your way down, your origin story. How did you get into becoming a broker? That's one of the most important things is if people understand your story, they're a whole lot more likely to trust you because they feel like, here's what we have in common. Here's why this person does what he does. If you know somebody's why, you feel a whole lot more comfortable doing business with them. So I'd start at the top of the list and work your way down and, maybe plan some of these as short videos. And once again, if you can do these as talking heads and then overlay some B-roll, that's the way Steve Ursano does his videos and also the way Tim Bonnell does his, I think, is to shoot them as an interview or shoot them as a talking head as if you were, talking to the camera. But then fade out to other scenes, diagrams, stills we like to use a still with like a zoom out or a zoom in or a Ken Burns effect is what they call it, slow pan, something like that. All of these would be great with those kinds of effects. So FBOs, charters, other things. Start with your most profitable or your most obvious differentiating features. So what is different between you and every other charter company or between you and every other broker or between you and every other publication? And, Anna Marie, some of the things that you could highlight would be the fact that, your publications are a little bit more affordable and accessible to um, some of those smaller aviation businesses. You also have a huge home built community and a huge GA community for In-Flight USA, and your BizAv USA, of course, is a very different brand. So you can highlight the differentiating factors between the two and be really, really specific. We've been in the last year, if there's any trend that we've been doing, it's been more shorter videos. You'll notice our old prospecting course was like 2 one-hour videos. Our new prospecting course is going to be probably 10 5-minute videos instead. And the reason for that is because each video becomes an entity on the web in and of itself. It's a thing that people can find for a specific topic. Google owns YouTube. Google is still the world's largest search engine by volume. YouTube, I think, is third or fourth, depending on the day. So if you have a video on YouTube and you embed it into a web page, then you get number 1 and number 3 without much more effort than that, just simply by creating a 2-minute video. Okay. Storyboarding your idea. We're going to spend a little bit of time here because it sounds like Miguel and Anna Marie both have interest in this. And, this is actually, I think the difference between a really good video and a really bad video is, does it tell a story? And does it really get into the topic? And does it show rather than tell? So this is a pretty successful, there are other structures that you can use. This is probably the best structure if you were to only use one. If we were on a deserted island with only one story structure, this would probably be the one that I would recommend. And that is basically a problem solution call to action structure. So basically you start with an opener, which is an attention getter, a key fact or a joke or a um, visual that's really eye-catching or whatever. It's really important to get that first step right. And then you can spend more time on your problem, your solution, and then you finish with a call to action. What do you want people to do as a result of having seen this video?
I mean, we did a walk around of a BBJ for somebody,
Yeah.
basically a pre-flight,
Mhm.
and they used that for a long time.
Yeah. I think that was Gene Clow, talking about, a BBJ that he was.
Was that for him or was that for Dave down in Florida?
Oh,
Yeah.
it could have been. Yeah, doesn't matter. Anyway. Yeah, and a lot of times those videos have a hugely long life, past when they're shot, and an embarrassingly long life, given how technology progresses, and we were shooting at 1080p or whatever, a few years ago, and those videos are still getting a lot of traffic, even though they're terrible, from today's standards from a technology point of view. They're not high resolution. Okay. So, here are some video length stats. I like to think about the topic first. How long is it going to take to do the job correctly? Do a good opener that should be, um, in general, you have about 45 seconds, if that, to capture somebody's attention when they first open a video. If they don't click away in 45 seconds, they are likely to stay a whole lot longer. So most of your traffic is going to click away within the first 45 seconds unless you really, really hook them in and capture their attention with something. But that said, I like to use the example of Yellowstone because it's like one of my favorite TV shows. And we will watch that for hours and hours and hours because they hook you in the beginning couple of seconds of every episode. There is something going on where somebody's getting shot or somebody's getting dragged behind a horse or, there's something happening. The action really draws you in. And sometimes they'll start in the middle of the story and then go back and explain how they got you there. So if you can start from the most interesting point, that needs to be your opener. And then once you've earned their attention, you've got them for as long as you want them, especially if you keep earning their attention with, little shifts in storyline or in visuals and other things. Cool. Questions about length, or should we go on to the story structure and kind of dig into our opener? All right, let's dig into our opener. Okay, so anybody want to be a volunteer from the studio audience? It's Anna Marie and Angel or Ben. I'm sorry, Ben's not here. Ben's robot is here. Or Miguel, if you'd like to talk about an opener that you could use maybe for this afternoon.
Sure, yeah, that's fine. We can do that.
Okay. So, what are the things that people find most surprising, I guess, about your business? What makes customers, what stops them in their tracks when you're talking to people? Or what questions do people approach you with the most often?
For what we're doing today with the charter and the jet card's new, charter brokerage we've been doing for a long time.
Mhm.
What's the most asked question?
Yeah. Or the thing that people find the most surprising.
You know what? I'll probably do this with the fractional ownership because this is what they find the most surprising is when they're used to flying private, and paying charter prices, and then we offer the fractional ownership prices. They're like, really, it's that much cheaper. You can fly for $15,000 instead of $40,000. Yes. So for fractional ownership, I think it's a lot. That's kind of where their wow factor is, and that's why they're more eager to sign up for the fractional ownership because they feel like they're saving so much money and getting so much value for it.
Okay, great. So, something about, a lot of people are surprised when they come from private ownership and find that, and we'd need to boil that down to a fact or boil that down to a statistic or boil that down to something that's 30 seconds or less, that can really capture people's attention. And you can use ChatGPT for this. That's usually my crutch of choice when I'm trying to shorten something or find the most, what is the word, distilled version of something. It does a pretty good job of taking a lot of information and distilling it down into a one liner or something like that. So you could do that. If you have an owner that has a quote, or has told you something in particular, you can say, I was talking with, and this is a great way of starting a conversation because people love to eavesdrop on other people's conversations. So if you say, "I was talking with an owner the other day," you don't have to name names or anything else, but start from the story point of view. And this is what happened. He was really surprised to find out that X, Y, or Z. And then from there, you can tell about the conversation. And then, you're telling a story that people are interested in listening to. Um, so the owner would be, or the opener, excuse me, would be something along the lines of, I'm giving you the opportunity to eavesdrop into this conversation that I had with an owner recently. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, and I watch a lot of those. I watch a lot of videos, of course, as a marketer and also as a human being, and I have a hard time resisting some of those when people are talking about, "This was happening the other day, and we got into a conversation or we got into a debate," especially where he thought this and I thought that, and, this is how we resolved it and stuff. So that opener will lead right into your problem and your solution, so you want to do this in order. Get their attention first, explain the problem, this is what people think, and this is why they think that, and then go into, well, here's the solution. Here is why fractional ownership is sometimes a better solution for people because da 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 da, and then you can put together a really compelling argument after having brought them into this conversation. They get to eavesdrop. They get to hear the whole conflict. They get to hear, why people think differently, how you convince them otherwise, and so on. And then the call to action is, if you would like to know more about fractional ownership, or, a phrasing that we've used in the past really successfully is don't put up with this problem anymore. Here's the solution that may work for you, if you're having this problem, and here's how we could help. First step is to have a conversation and so on. Or, if you want them to call you or text you or, whatever you want to do. Um, Depending on how this conversation is structured and how much control you have over the filming and everything else, you may want to be really, really specific with your call to action. And then you can always use this in different contexts. You could use this conversation in a different video that maybe leads a different direction, or you could use this in a short video that just leads to a call to action and says, here's specifically how you can solve this problem because people are super busy. And if you leave it vague, they're not going to do whatever you ask them to do.
Right. Right.
Yeah. Cool. So, or go to this website and fill out this form.
Okay.
Whatever it is that you want them to do, give them one thing to do, not three. Especially in a 1-minute video, you want to make sure that you're ending with your strongest call to action.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Does anybody else want to do one? Anna Marie, you want to do advertising, selling advertising, or selling a dress?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, selling advertising would be good.
Okay. Cool. So, do you want, and you don't want to be a talking head. You don't want to show your face on video, or you'd rather have this be other visuals or behind the scenes or animations or something, or
I prefer that. Yes.
okay.
I mean, I've done animations, I've done like drawing videos. So I
Yeah.
think but I mean if it made more sense for me to be a talking head, I would do it, but
Okay.
I prefer not to.
Okay. I would love for you to do this with your face because you're very passionate about what you do. You've been doing it a long time. A lot of people know you from different events and other things. So, I think your brand is supported by, putting your face behind your brand really adds an element of credibility that is hard to replicate. But that, I want to give you an alternative as well because if you won't do it, you won't do it. That's
It's
just
not
the
a long
reality of some clients, and that's, if I can get you to do a video this week without using your face, that's better than not doing a video until next month when I've talked you into using your face, right? So, if we did one without using your face, it could be, some things about I would start with some really astonishing facts about advertising, or some, astonishing quotes about advertising, especially in the current economy, say something about during a recession, and we just did one recently about this. Um, there were 3 aircraft companies, Bombardier, Embraer and somebody else, Textron, I think. And Embraer, during the last recession, increased their advertising. John, tell me if I'm getting this wrong.
It's either Embraer and Bombardier. I don't remember which one. I think it's Bombardier, actually.
Right, exactly, and they increased their market share during a recession by advertising during a recession, while the others were just the titans in the business and, untouchable. So,
Yeah.
you can start with something like that, saying, "We're going into a recession. Here are 3 strategies, and here's how somebody did this in history," Um, and, start with a key, an astonishing statistic, if we as astonishing as you can come up with for your opener and say, "This is how they did it." "Did you know that Embraer" and I don't know if I'm getting this right, I'll have to look up the facts later, but "Did you know that Embraer increased their market share by 30% during the worst years of the 2008 recession?" The worst,
Yeah.
period of the 2008 recession. And, something along those lines, and show a pie chart or, something that shows, especially like an animated pie chart or something like that, that really drags people into this video and says, "Really? How'd they do that?" Then you can go into this is the problem that they had. The other companies were, you know, leaders in the industry. They were dominating all the shows. They had bigger budgets, da 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 da, all that stuff. But, um, you gain traction when everybody else is slowing down. When you put on the speed, when everybody else is slowing down, that's when you make those big gains and things like that. So you can explain their strategy, explain how it worked, all of that stuff.
As a
And then
matter of fact,
yeah.
I don't remember the name of the country. Like, the name of it, easy for me to say, the name of the company,
Mhm,
but in the 29 depression of this country, one company decided to continue marketing,
mhm.
and they're the number one company today.
Oh, yeah, that was a Post versus Kellogg's, I think, or something
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah, it was a cereal company. It was,
marketing college things, yeah, but there's a lot of things that you can use that are great stories. Because a lot of people are cutting back on marketing, and that
Yeah.
drives me crazy because this is such an opportunity, and, it's been proven over and over and over again every time there's a recession, the companies that continue to market are the ones that emerge from that recession on top. So, you can tell that story very compellingly with your voice, and you got a great voice. So, I think you can do
Yeah.
that really, really well.
Right. Yeah, I think that's great to focus on the importance of marketing at all times
Mhm,
during a recession, during expansion, during times when other people are pulling back.
mhm,
That's definitely a good way to sell more advertising, and I think making a video
mhm.
on that would be great.
Yeah. I would caution against going too general. So you wanna tell, one story or, solve one problem and say, this is the Embraer story or the Post story or the Revlon story. I think they also have a great success story during a revolution but during a recession. And I would focus on the recession just because it is timely and make, one short video about that. And then you can make other short videos about when times are good. Here's another story, about how how marketing in the aviation industry especially can help a company. But again, I think I'd use the same structure, but do very, very tiny stories because that will keep people's interest and it will make a really short, punchy video. And it's
Yes.
yeah, and especially for your first few, you wanna do short ones because that really builds your comfort level and it also builds your traffic so that, you're not building a masterpiece and having nobody see it and spending hours and hours and a lot of money, having it produced and so on. You wanna build your audience with short videos first, and then you can get into longer videos as well.
Right, and I want these to be things that I can do myself or
Mhm.
that your team can help me with so that we're not spending thousands of dollars with these professionals, at least not yet.
Oh, heaven forbid, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, and, I am all for professional photography and professional videography when you can do that, but I also am very much against, companies bankrupting themselves with things that they wouldn't have to do if they can avoid it. So, yeah, and you can use stock photography, you can use stock imagery. Canva is amazing. iStock is amazing. Dreamstime is amazing. There's a lot of B-roll that you could use, especially if you're telling a historical story.
And Miguel, if you think about stories to tell, we have another client
Ah,
that does charter. Well, we have a couple, but this particular one, they have customers that absolutely refuse to fly with anybody else
mhm,
because during a particularly bad hurricane when nobody would fly them anywhere, these guys were able to get in, get them, pick them up, brought them back home.
mhm. Yeah, they were in the Bahamas,
There's
I think.
stories like
Mhm,
that I'm sure you got, and you need to emphasize those.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, they found a nice weather window and brought somebody's kids home from the Bahamas. I mean, you cannot get any more heroic than bringing somebody's kids home
Yes.
when you've got worried parents, right? Okay. So, any other thoughts or questions about storyboarding? And, there's other story structures, but this one I think is a really, really good one that works for a lot of different things. Anybody want to try another example or anything else? Or we feeling good about this structure? Good. All right. Cool. We'll carry on. Okay. Getting shots and clips. So, videographers and photographers are super expensive. And it's also such a pain in the neck to clean up your hangar and get everything perfect. And, to clean an airplane is like a days long project, getting it ready for a photo shoot. People don't understand how much work goes into those kinds of things. So we want to make sure that you get the most out of uh, that effort and that money, especially if you're hiring a photographer or videographer. We recommend hiring somebody for a half day or a full day or something like that on a fairly regular basis so that you get to know them depending on your market and your budget and everything else. And you can do this yourself. So whether you're planning for a photo shoot that you're doing yourself or whether you're hiring somebody to come in, and since we are in Utah and most of our clients are not in Utah, we get to do one ourselves on Friday, which is gonna be fun, but most of the time we don't. You can use thumbtack.com to see some pretty good listings of photographers and videographers with their portfolios and their reviews and other things, and people have had pretty good luck with that. Um, and then, you can hire somebody that is within your budget and your schedule and all of those things. So, when you hire somebody, you're gonna want to brainstorm a shot list. Here's the wish list of things that we want. We want a slow pan of the front of the building. We want a slow pan of each of these aircraft, interior, exterior. We want interior shots. We want some shots outside at sunrise or sunset. Nowadays, you can fake backgrounds if you want to, but still, there is something amazing about having a clean shot that you just cannot replicate. So if you can do the golden hour of sunrise or sunset, absolutely do that.
In fact, we did a video, an approach to an FBO,
Mhm,
right?
mhm.
And that went a long ways for a while.
Oh, yeah, if you can do the, time-lapse photography. We did one with, turbines. They set up a camera actually in their shop and did an engine replacement and some other things and stuff, and then just had a time-lapse, um video going on a tripod that was in the corner, pretty unobtrusive, and that's one of their best performing videos ever, was this time-lapse photography or time-lapse video of a process that they were doing. Okay, getting good sound is really, really important. Uh, Bad video is forgivable, bad sound is not, um, and aviation is particularly stinky in this regard because hangars are big and echoey, and there are big metal cylindrical objects in hangars that distort sound. So it's just like a nightmare for a sound person. So we do recommend a short distance mics, the lavalier mics, the fuzzy mics, all of those things. If you're gonna spend money on something, spend money on the sound, or spend money on the audio equipment, if you need to. But, bad video, you can kinda get away with if you have good sound. Any questions about photos, video, anything else? I think our tactic is always to take a ton of photos and video and throw half of them away once we review them. That always makes the resulting half better if we take 50% more.
As an example, we
Mhm.
typically will interview somebody
Mm.
at MBAA,
Mhm.
and it is so damn noisy
Mm.
that what we've resorted to is finding which room is available
Mhm.
and just go upscaled with it for about 15 minutes.
Mhm.
And that way we can cut out all the background noise and get people to relax and get what we need out of it.
Right. And we can use B-roll of the show, and show the chaos and mayhem, but we don't take sound of the chaos and mayhem because nobody wants to hear that, so cool. Leave big margins. This is one that people forget all the time. Leave big margins at the beginning and the end of video clips. I always tell people, take a deep breath before you start speaking. It's really uncomfortable, and a lot of times people will just start really fast because, I'm on video, I need to use this time, I need to jump right in and start talking. But, I really do recommend turn on the camera, take a deep breath, then start speaking, because then that leaves a nice margin so that we can do a nice fade in or something along those lines without it being, cutting off your voice or jumping in too fast. And at the end, take a deep breath before you turn the camera off. That way you're not walking toward the camera at the end of the video. I'm kinda guilty of that. I've done it a lot, but, you wanna leave a big margin at the beginning and the end. That just makes it look a whole lot more professional and so on. Um, alright. Yeah, yeah, take advantage of all forms of video, not just live action video. You can do stills, like I said, you can do a Ken Burns pan across a photograph, you can do a lot of different things, if you have a limited amount of video. So, when you do a shot list for a photographer or videographer, you're gonna save a lot of money if you think about the locations that you want them to come and the places that you want them to shoot. So, in location 1, I want these shots or these clips or these pans or these whatevers, and be as specific as you can about what you want in location 1, because what ends up spending a lot of money is if you end up having to go back and forth between locations, and you have to pull a plane out and do more shots or pull a plane in and do more shots because you forgot something. Or if you have to have your photographer travel to a different location and bring all their stuff. So, think about the locations, even if it's just in your office is location number 1, in your hangar is location number 2, on the ramp is location number 3. What are the shots that you want in each of those locations? And, put together a nice wish list so that they can be organized and say, you know what, it would be better to do location 3 at sunrise or whatever, and then we can do your other locations, but at least they have a plan that can be modified, but, at least you're saving yourself as much time, hassle, and money as possible.
And depending on the time of day,
Mhm.
what you're up to, sometimes you want to make the ramp wet before you pull the airplane out. The reflection is amazing different.
Yeah, and depending on where you are, you may have a dust issue as well, so if you can keep the dust down after spending all that time scrubbing bellies of airplanes, you don't want dust on things if you can avoid it. John and I have spent a lot of time scrubbing bellies of airplanes, so all right. Um, reasons to hire a pro, I do not recommend amateur photography of airplane exteriors because it's the worst. It's like the most difficult thing in the world to shoot. If you're shooting in an expensive location or have limited time, or if you're shooting with a VIP, it is ideal to hire a professional so that it just takes that layer of stress off of you, and you don't have to learn how to do this in front of a client or somebody who is very important to you. You want to make sure that your expertise is about aviation and not about photography. They know you for one thing and not for the other.
Yeah, but now when you go to hire a guy to do aircraft
Mm, mhm.
photography, you wanna see some of his work
Yes, of aircraft.
because there are tons of things we learned from a guy that used to work for us,
Mhm,
um, about blocking windows, putting lights here and there, and just in general.
mhm.
I mean, some of the things you just wouldn't think about that makes huge difference in the result.
Yeah. Getting the right wash of light, on a pho on an aircraft side is. But yeah, Taylor Greenwood, highly recommended. If you can get him nowadays, we started with him before he was famous, so that was cool. Um, anyway, yeah, if any of those things is true, consider hiring a pro. Otherwise, do your own videography or photography. If you're doing interiors, you can usually do a pretty decent job yourself, and you can get exactly what you're trying to show off. You as a if especially if you're the broker, there are some specific things about the aircraft that you're gonna wanna show off that a, photographer may not be familiar with, and you wanna get those nooks and crannies and those specific items, and you may know more than they do about these things, but, sometimes you need a pro. Alright, I'm gonna zoom through the rest of this just so that we have time for anything else. Editing and production, um Angel, did you wanna talk about our process and how we've learned to save a lot of time over when we started working together? And, yeah, you've done a couple of things for us that have saved
Uh,
us a ton of time. Yeah, go ahead.
y- yeah, if I just could share a quick thought. One thing I've really learned from editing ABCI videos really is how Paula structure her script or storyboard, or how the workshop goes along. The basic flow, like opener, the problem, the solution, and the call to action, really makes a big difference because it gives the video a natural beginning, middle, and an end. And it's not just great for the viewer; it's also great for editing on the editing side too, because most especially when using AI tools like Opus Clip, when your content's already organized and the AI does a better job picking out um, one idea and another idea, and it can pull little clips from a longer video, which is a big win for me because I love how it saves my time automatically. But I would still recommend reviewing and editing those clips manually because sometimes the cuts aren't totally clean. You'll notice things like filler words not being trimmed properly. There are awkward cuts, small stuff, but I think it affects the final results. And it really makes a big difference for me because if we just take the output directly from the AI tool and don't catch those things, it come across like we're not being polished with our message. And I think that affect how people um, perceive the quality of the content, even if the actual message is solid. So the story structure that Paula mentioned really helps with the editing part because I would know because the video is already planned from the start, and it is easier for me to see where to trim, where the strong moments are, and what to highlight. So yeah, the combo of story structure plus AI support plus a little bit of editing touch really for me really works because it makes it easier and also really save my time in editing.
Right. Yeah, and one thing that we've started doing, I think, and I'm trying to get better at, is doing batches of video and sending them to Angel, with plenty of time to, edit, and then, we end up with a really, really professional result because I can sit in my studio and shoot 4 or 5 videos in one sitting. I can, do my outlining and everything else in one afternoon. I can turn on all my cameras and stuff. I can shoot 4 or 5 videos, 2-minute videos, and then send Angel all of the stuff, with the outlines and everything else, and, then come out with a better result. We used to spend a lot more time on video than we do now, and a lot of that is because of the batching, and a lot of it is because of the AI, first cuts, so that's, and a lot of it is because of Angel's, skill and things like that, which is better than I expected, so it's great, it's amazing, and we're always learning, all the time. So last thing is about publishing your video. Once you have a video, you've worked really hard on this. So you want to make sure that you are publishing it anywhere and everywhere. And sometimes you'll need to make slight variations, maybe to the editing on a video. So like on your YouTube channel, you may want to put a thumbnail or a end screen on the end of it that leads to your other videos and things like that. So it's just a little bit of editing on the very end that makes it an ideal YouTube video versus an ideal promo video on your website versus an ideal video on your social channels and things like that. And sometimes we can take a horizontal video, make it vertical, if we need to. It's best to shoot with the intention in mind, but since this is such a time-consuming thing, we wanna make sure that we're making the most of those video assets and putting them everywhere, anywhere and everywhere. Um, any questions about channels or anything like that? Okay. Yeah, I would just say, shoot more video. Show rather than tell. That's always kind of the difference between articles and videos. I love long articles. I've started out as a writer. I've been a writer since the beginning of time, but videos are such a powerful way to promote even your writing, and to promote those long articles, which are also very powerful. So, yeah. And it doesn't matter how good your video is if nobody sees it. So you can do the Cecil B. DeMille supercut of something that's incredibly fabulous. And if you don't get the reach or the views from it, then it's not worth the time. So you want to make sure that you're using every possible publishing trick in the book. And there are a few things like leading to your other videos, connecting your videos together, linking your videos to your product pages or to your money pages is what we call them. Lots of things that you can do to make sure that you're getting the most out of what you've invested in video.
And the other thing is, just like stills,
Mm.
take a bazillion more than you need
Mhm.
because you can throw away a lot. You can snip out of here and snip out of there and put it together, and
Right,
that way you don't miss.
right. Last word is basically, there's a lot of ways to get statistics on your videos and to see what's worked and what hasn't. You wanna do more of what worked and less of what didn't, pretty obviously. So there's a lot of things that we've learned from watching our statistics. A couple of the things we wanna look at are impressions. Also, view duration is really important. So, if people are watching for 4 minutes, um, that's one that we wanna do again, even if it's half the number of people, because that means that once they get into it, they're really interested in that topic, and so on. So, we're watching for impressions first, probably view time second, and, anything else that I'm missing, John, Mr. Statistics?
Probably, but I'm not thinking about it right now.
Exactly, and this is just YouTube, metrics. You also get metrics from each of your social media, and, there's a lot of ways to review and, see how things are working on LinkedIn. Angel does a fabulous dashboard every month of your LinkedIn profile, and then you can see how your videos are performing there, and so on. So any questions, thoughts, or anything else?
Oh, the other thing I was going to say is when you do this, before you publish it anywhere, publish it on your own website.
Yes, that is absolutely correct. Yeah, exactly. So intellectual property law is pretty clear, at least in the United States. If you publish something on your own website first, there is no dispute about who owns it. If you use copyrighted materials like music or anything else, of course, you may have that problem. But the video itself is yours. If you've published it on your website and you've got a timestamp from WordPress or whatever CRM you're using and things like that, then you will never lose, and people will never contest your ownership of a piece of intellectual property. And that goes for articles and videos as well.
Yep.
And then you can put it anywhere you want because you've established ownership.
Yes.
Right. I'm not a lawyer. I just play one on TV. This is not legal advice. I guess I need to put the in there. Okay. Cool. All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us.